So today we're going to do the handover video on this Benimar Tessoro. It's the 494 model, and now we're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. So firstly, underneath the bonnet, to access this you'll need your key, and all that simply does is connects into here, turn it to the left and then turn it to the right to release the latch, and then you can lift up the bonnet. When the bonnet's lifted, gain you access, of course, underneath. The main things that you need to know underneath here is if you're ever going to jump start the vehicle. If you are jump starting, as you can see, you've got the red cap here, which has a plus sign indicating the positive terminal, and a negative terminal, as indicated by this sticker here, just points down to this point here. So negative onto there and positive onto there. And as I mentioned, they're the main things that you're going to need to know. But just to point out a couple more things, you've got your radiator coolant here. You've then got your brake disc fluid along with your engine oil and your dipstick below, and your washer fluid, which is just to the left. Coming over to the passenger side and moving on from the bonnet, opening up the passenger door, you'll notice that you've got your fill up points. So in here you've got your diesel up at the top, and then below that you've got your AdBlue fill up points as well. When this is running low, you'll get an indication on the dash just to let you know that that needs topping up. You'll also notice that you've got Remis cab blinds fitted to the vehicle at the front. You've got them on each of your passenger and driver's doors, along with your big window at the front. To operate these, all you need to do is simply pinch and pull them out like so. I typically find it's a lot easier if you lead the blind from the bottom instead of leading from the top, as they will get stuck that way. They just connect via a magnetic strip and will, as I say, black out the entire cab. Moving backwards, you'll then notice that you've got your barbecue points here. Of course, you'll need your gas bottles fitted into the vehicle, but with them turned on, that will then allow you to use your barbecue point. Next up, you've got a vent. It says Troomer on there. Be careful, this does get hot. In essence, this is the vehicle's chimney, so you just have to be mindful about not hanging anything on there and just giving this a wide berth if the vehicle is in use. You've got your habitation door up next, but obviously we'll go into the habitation area once we've completed the outside. Next up, you'll then notice that you've got your fridge vent. Now please be aware that obviously this is where the fridge pulls all of the air from. So if it is a warm day, you are going to struggle. It's not going to perform as efficiently. So what I'd recommend is just pulling out your awning, or typically turning the vehicle away from the sun, just so it works a little bit more efficiently. You can also buy covers for these for when you are storing the vehicle. Next up, you've got the cassette locker, which I'll open up for you now. And as you can see with this open, your cassette toilet is just located here. You can see you've got a blue tab here. Push up on that and that slides out and will release the cassette. And with the cassette pulled out, all you'll need to do to empty this is remove the blue cap at the front, press the blue button at the back, which will release an internal vacuum and empty the entire cassette. Once you've done that, you can put a bit of water in here to swill it out, and if you're using blue fluid rather than toilet sachets, you've got a measurement in the lid that you can just pour it into there and then pop it straight back into the cassette to cleanse the system. You'll also notice that you've got a blue valve here. This should always stay in this position. This is what makes contact with the blade, which is located on the inside of the toilet, which I'll show you, as I say, as we go inside. This should always stay in this position. If that is slightly off, it will get jammed, so that needs to always remain in that position. There should be no need for you to turn that. With the cassette emptied, you can then line it back up, slide it in until the blue clip is in situ. And please ensure that before removing, the blade on the toilet, as mentioned, is closed. If it's opened, you'll run into the issue of you not being able to pull that out, and some customers have been known to force that and pull it and it'll jam and subsequently break the cassette. So just bear that in mind. Please ensure that the toilet, or the blade rather, is closed before removing this. And as I say, I will show you that shortly. Moving on to the rear, you've got your garage door here. And as you can see in the garage, you've got a spare wheel along with your carpets, along with a few other bits, as well as your awning pole, which is just there. Now your awning, as you can see, is a Fiamma awning attached to the side of the vehicle. You can see you've got a little winder up there, which all you need to do is connect the awning to it and wind out. Now embedded in the awning are 2 awning legs, which when you wind it out to a point you can reach it, you can drop the legs down. They will then take the weight of the awning, and then you can angle the legs and simply walk out the awning and extend it. Now I'll send you a separate video showing you how the awning works, so that way you can see how to set it up correctly. Now in the back here as well, before moving on, it's worth knowing that this area is completely heated, so if you are putting anything damp in there, it will of course keep it nice and warm for you. On the back of the vehicle, you've got 2 provisions for a bike rack if you ever wanted to fit one, along with your reversing camera, which is up at the top there. And then moving round, you've got a smaller garage door just to access into the garage on the other side. Moving on, you then can see that you've got a sticker which is located here, and this indicates your first drain down point. Now your 3 main drain down points in the vehicle, you've got your wastewater drain down point, your freshwater drain down point, and finally your boiler drain down point. Now as you can see, this is actually your wastewater drain down point. You'll notice, as I say, because of the sticker, you've got a pipe which is just underneath there, along with a black handle. When you're on site, you'll have a big grid that you can drive over. Once you are there, simply pull that lever towards you and that will empty all of the water into that grid. Now for all your drain down points, you want to make sure that the vehicle is completely drained down before travelling, if you can. So when you're on site and you're finishing up, obviously drive over that grid, pull that lever, that will empty all the water. And then what I personally recommend is once all the majority of the water has been drained, leave all them drain down points open, as when you're travelling home, the vibrations of the road will just ensure that that water is out of the vehicle. Now as I mentioned, it's a good idea to always drain down the system when you're not using the vehicle, even in the summer, because you don't want it run the risk of it potentially freezing. Next up, you've then got your gas locker, which I'll open for you now. And with that open, you can see you've got space for 2 gas bottles in there. This is your regulator, and in here is your pigtail. That pigtail will connect to your gas bottle and connect into the vehicle, and that will allow the gas to flow through. Please ensure when you're travelling that the gas is off for safety, and then of course when you're on site you can turn that gas on and let that flow through. Next to that, you've then got your freshwater fill-up point. So all you need is your key to obviously unlock that. Turn that cap comes off, just like you're filling up your tank with diesel, but instead this is water. I personally recommend using a food grade hose pipe, as that will ensure that there's no bacteria that builds up in the pipe when putting the water into the freshwater tank. And then once this is overflowing, you've obviously filled your tank of your fresh water. Once you've done that, you can stick your cap back on and move on to your pitch. Finally, you've then got your hookup point for your 230 volt electric. This will allow you to have 230 volt mains into the vehicle. As you can see, it just connects up via there. Okie dokie, so we are now on the inside of the vehicle. Now please note that the vehicle hasn't had a valet yet. I just wanted to get this video out to you before you collect. As you walk in through the habitation door, you'll notice straight above you, you've got your control panel along with your Truma heating panel. So firstly, the main control panel, as you can see, is just here. You've got this green button here, which is your master switch. As you can see, that turns everything on and off. Turn that back on and then you're good to go. You've got your 12 volt here, which will activate all your 12 volt, i.e. your lights. Next up, you've then got a little tap button. As you've probably heard off that just activates your pump. Only run the pump, of course, if you've got fresh water in the tank. You don't want to run the pump for a prolonged period without any water, as you'll simply burn the pump out. Next up, you've then got another light switch here. That is just for the light on the outside. You've got like a little door light on the side of the vehicle. So that's what that's for. And then below, you've got your levels. So you've got your habitation battery level, the first one, which indicates we're full as we are plugged in at the moment, and you can see on the screen that we've got a green light to indicate that we are plugged in. We've then got your cab battery level. As you can see, we're nearly more or less full. And then you've got your freshwater level. Now we've no fresh water in the vehicle at the moment, hence why it's reading red and is below a third and is reading 0. When the wastewater is full, you'll get a little indicator next to here, like a little light, and that will light up. You'll also notice there's an amber light just saying that there's no fresh water in the tank, and that's just an indication for when obviously you're using the vehicle. Finally, you've then got this little button here. This is a settings button for the brightness of the panel, so you can adjust that accordingly. Okie dokie, next up you've got your trimmer system. Click home, that will then bring you to this home screen. You've got the room climate. You've then got your warm water, along with a few other bits. So obviously your controls for your heating, the first two. So if you're wanting to heat the vehicle itself, click room climate. You can put it on ventilating if you wanted, which will just ventilate and circulate the air. And you've then got the option of heating, which 9 times out of 10, knowing our weather, you'll click it on heating. So you have a few options here. Let me just change this quickly and I'll talk you through this in a minute. Just stick that on. Perfect. So if we go back, as I say, we're into the heating mode at the moment. At the moment it's set to 22 degrees, as you can see, and I can change that using the plus and minus button, depending on the temperature you're wanting. Now 9 times out of 10 you'll have it on your comfort mode, but if you are moving on to sites and obviously it's especially a cool day, you can click it on the fast mode. That will just intensify in essence as you can imagine the heating process. Now just below obviously the option of fast and comfort, you can also see there's an energy source. A little bit difficult to see on the video, apologies. Just click on that. At the moment we've got it set to electric. I'll just try and let that focus on there. Just 1 second. That's a little better. You can see at the top you can run the system off gas. So at the moment it's set to off because I've no gas in the vehicle, or you can set it as gas on. And then below that you've got the electricity. At the moment I'm hooked up, so I've put it on 900 watts, but you can obviously change that to 1800 watts if you've got a little bit more power. As I've so many vehicles on the site, I've decided to put it on 900 watts. If you want to turn that off as well, you can click obviously electric off. Now if it is a very cold day, you may want to run the gas and the electric at the same time. If you're doing that, all you need to do is click gas on as well as your electric, and that will allow you to do so. But as I say, because I've no gas in the vehicle at the moment, I'm not going to run that system. Now, one thing to know is if it is especially quite cold and you are on a site, what I personally recommend is if you stick it on gas to begin with, it does help it get up to temperature a lot quicker, and then you can flick it over to a mixture or obviously a just purely electric. Now you can see it's just brought us back to the home screen there, so just click that, back onto room climate, and then we're in there. If you want to turn that off, just simply click turn off at the top, and that will bring you back to the home screen. Next up is your water temperature. Click turn on for that. You can see you've got a similar setup. Now again, like the temperature in the vehicle, you can change the temperature of the water just by selecting the plus or minus button. So you've got a few options, as I say, depending on what you want to do. Now, as you can see, it is currently saying error at the moment. The reason for that error is this was select to gas previously, and because of no gas associated with the vehicle, that is just causing an error to form. With that in mind, we can then go into the settings panel and reset this to clear that error, but I'll show you how to do that later on. Again, on the other side, you've then got the energy source that you can change, so you can either have it on gas or electric, or a combination of both. You can select the options, just like so. One thing to know as well before I come off this, you have also got the option of changing the heater strength in essence, depending on obviously how cold it is and how hot you want the temperature to get. Once you've done with that, click turn off, and that again will bring you back to your main home screen. Now, if you do have the iNet app, you'll need your smartphone for this, and you can connect your smartphone via Bluetooth, I believe it is, and then when you're out and about, you can, if you wanted, or nearby the vehicle, set your heating just simply from your phone, which is a little bit simpler and easier. Below that, you've then got a notifications panel. You can see we've got a notification here. Now, the notifications panel is really for if you get any faults. Now, as I mentioned, we've got a fault at the moment, and it will tell you the fault there, saying that there's a gas cylinder missing. As I say, this was set to gas originally, and because I've no gas in the vehicle, it is just faulting, because of course it can't power the vehicle. So just with that in mind, obviously you can have a read of it, and it will tell you through here. Now, once you resolved it, you can click declare issue resolved, and that will simply bring you to reset the error. Click reset, and then you'll be good to go. Now, coming out of that, you've then got your turn off button. So this is how you power the system down. Simply click that button there. And then finally, you've got your settings panel in here. You've got obviously the option of date and time, but you can click general, and that will bring you a load of, as I say, a load of options up in terms of language, brightness of the screen, and various things like that. The main things that you need to know is if you ever factory resetting the panel. If you're doing that, click that, and then click reset everything. Click reset, and that will reset the entire panel for you. It'll take about 20 minutes to fully reset. As you can see, it's just resetting it now, and then we can program it back up like so. So now we're moving away from the control panel and into your lounge. You've got seat belts here for your two passengers, and obviously your two seats up at the front. Now, underneath this bench seat, you've got your boiler, along with a couple more bits as well. So I'll just lift that up now for you and show you. And as you can see, by lifting this up, this will then access your boiler. Before we move on to the boiler, underneath here, you can see that you've got a your fuse box, which is just located here. So with the vehicle ever trips and you blow a fuse, your fuses are just located here. What I personally recommend is taking some spare fuses with you, so in the event, let's say your bed trips or something trips and you blow a fuse, you can of course replace them and you're ready to go. They're just normal standard fuses. You can go to Halfords or somewhere like that just to get a bag of fuses ready for you. Across from that, you've then got your RCD breaker. So if the vehicle ever trips, you can come to this point and obviously reset it. And then on this side, you've then got your charging for your alternator, along with the starter. Now, coming over to your boiler, as I mentioned on the outside, you've got three main drain down points. We've spoken about your wastewater, and your boiler drain down point is just located here next to the boiler itself. As you can see, you've got this little valve here. It's a little bit difficult to see on the video, but you can see that blue diamond, which is just located on the top. At the moment, it is in the open position. There's a little black nib that pops out in the middle of that, and then I don't know whether you can see it, but there's a blue tab just on the side which just pops out, and that means that the boiler is open, or the drain down point rather is open. To close this, all you need to do is turn the diamond like so, and then press that tab on the side back in, and that will allow you to completely close the system. Now, at the moment, the blue tab on the side is actually still pinging out. The reason for that is this actually reacts to temperature. So what that does is when it gets to a temperature which it believes that the water is going to freeze, it will automatically trip and drain out your water, which is a really clever system. It's a really good fail-safe and a fantastic idea. Now, obviously, if you're running the heating in the vehicle and this area is warm, as that reacts to temperature, don't worry about it suddenly, you know, draining all your water when you're using the van. But obviously it's designed, if you're not using the van and this gets to a certain temperature, it will ping out and it won't allow you to push that back in. If that is the case, just go onto your heating panel, as I've just shown you. Turn your heating on, your vehicle heating that is, not your water, your vehicle heating, and that will heat this area up and allow you to push that back into place. As I mentioned, when using the boiler, that diamond needs to be turned rather, with the blue button pressed in. And then when you're emptying it, simply turn the diamond like so. That will push the blue button out on the side, and that will empty and completely drain the boiler. And that's really important that you do that, especially obviously in the winter, but I would personally do in the summer as well, just to get into the habit, because you don't want any stagnant water in the vehicle either. Moving on into the other side of the lounge, you can see that I've just removed the cushion here, along with the wooden insert to reveal your freshwater tank. Now in here, I've just removed this black cap here because in here, you can obviously clean the tank out. I personally don't recommend drinking out the freshwater tank as it is plastic. I'd personally use bottled water, but if you'd like, you can drink out of it and use purifying tablets. But if you are doing that, you'll need to obviously wash it out regularly. To do that, remove this black cap and then you can wipe out the inside. Now to drain down this is your third and final drain down point, you'll be glad to know. It is located underneath the tank and underneath the vehicle, which I'll show you where that is now. And back on the outside, the drain down point is just located where the filler point is, but underneath the vehicle. As you can see, there is your fill up point there, or your drain down point. All you need to do is turn that blue valve and that will drain down the entire freshwater tank. You'll also notice you have a pipe at the back there. That is simply a breather pipe. Don't worry about that being covered up. It's for, as I say, it's a breather pipe. But the main drain down point is just this one here at the front to drain down the entire tank. Moving away from the lounge and into the kitchen, you can see that you've then got your sink here, along with your oven and grill with your hobs. It's nice that you've got electric as well, because if you're on site, you can obviously make use of your electric. And you've also some sockets which are dotted around the vehicle. Now, as I mentioned on the panel, you've got your pump. So when you're on site, firstly make sure that you've, of course, filled up with fresh water. Once you've done that, select your pump and then go to all of your taps and turn your taps on and then turn them to hot. What that will do is it'll pull fresh water from the freshwater tank into the boiler and out of the tap. Remember obviously to close the boiler when in use, because if you don't, it will just drain out when you're trying to do that. So ensure that that is done and then turn it to hot, and as I say, turn it to on, and that will pull fresh water from the freshwater tank into the boiler and then out to your taps. Do that for each of them, and once that's running steadily, you've primed your system for your hot water. Flick it over to the cold next and do that on each of your taps again, and again it will spurt and splutter, and then when it's running steadily, you've primed your system. From there you can then leave your pump on so long as you have water in the system, because each of your taps have got a micro switch on which will activate and deactivate the pump whenever you need it. But as I mentioned, that will take a few minutes to obviously bleed the system and prime it. Once you've done that, you are of course good to go. The reason I personally tell you to get it on hot first is, say for example you're on site, fill up with your fresh water tank, and if you pull all your hot water through first, which will in essence pull through the boiler, you can then turn your heating on because your boiler's primed and get that boiler warming up that water. Obviously it's not instantly hot just like that, it's going to take a good amount of time. So if that's the first thing you do when you're on site, by the time you come to use the vehicle, it will be nice and warm, that water. On the other side of the kitchen, you've got your fridge, along with a microwave at the top and a bit of storage as well. So located right at the top, as I say, you've got a bit of storage, but you've also got two systems. You've got an aerial here, that little switch will turn on and off the aerial, and then you've got your motorhome Wi-Fi up at the top there. Your Wi-Fi is dead simple. I'll show you that on the day, but in essence that will clip off and you put your SIM in the back, and that will allow you to obviously enable the Wi-Fi. But as I say, I'll go into detail on that on the day. And then your aerial is just below that. You've got a little dial there which will allow you to change the strength of the signal. But as I say, just leave that little button on and that will activate your aerial. Below here, you've got your microwave. Please bear in mind that this is only 230 volt, it's not a 12 volt microwave, so this will only work when you're on site and you're plugged in. And then below that, you've got your fridge. Now your fridge is a three-way system. There's three ways to, in essence, fuel it. You've got your freezer up at the top and your fridge below. Before I go on to show you how to use it, please bear in mind that this fridge does a very good job at maintaining the temperature, but not the best of jobs at getting it down to temperature. So for example, the frozen stuff in the fridge, if you want frozen stuff in there, put frozen things in there to begin with. And if you want cooled things in the fridge, of course, put cooled things in there straight from your fridge at home into here, as that will just maintain the temperature. Okie dokie, with the fridge on, simply hold that button and that will turn everything on. You've got this touch screen. Using this, if you just touch it like so, you can then select this and flick through the options. So at first you've got a little 230 volt plug icon, and as I say, that is for when you're hooked up on site and when you're wanting to access 230 volt. Next up, you've then got a little battery symbol, so that's if you want to run the fridge off the 12 volt the leisure battery, the 12 volt leisure battery. And next up, you've got a little flame symbol, which allows you to run the system off gas when you're wild camping. Now, if you select that little A button, that stands for auto, and that will automatically assign whichever fuel you've got to power the fridge. Now, as you can see, because we're hooked up to electric, it's automatically assigned electric for us. Now, you'll notice when I selected the other options, like the 12 volt leisure battery and the gas, it started flickering. It's to indicate that we've obviously no fuel to power the fridge. So if that is happening, obviously remember to select it onto a power that you have got. Now, a lot of people think that they can run the fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery when they are stationary and when they're wild camping. However, that is not the case. You can only run the fridge off gas when you're wild camping, because if you run it off 12 volt, it would simply sap the vehicle of all of its energy, or power rather, and you'd have nothing left. The only reason that that's there is for when you're travelling. You can flick it onto your 12 volt, as when you're travelling, your built-in alternator will send power from the engine into the leisure battery, which will then feed the fridge. Next up, you've then got the option of changing the temperature, and then you've got the option of recirculating the air already in there. To turn this off, simply hold, and eventually that will then just turn off like so. One thing I did forget to mention is you have got an extractor fan over your hob as well. And then you've got your bed, which is directly above your lounge. To operate this bed, you need to just click this button here, which is under the bed, like so, and that will drop the entire bed down. Obviously, make sure that the area is clear and that your two front driver's seats are pushed all the way to the front, and then you can access the bed. You'll need a ladder, of course, to get up to here. But with this, all your bedding can stay on. Just be mindful about putting thick duvets on there. You want it relatively thin. So it could, one, take the weight, but also allow a little bit of space for condensation and ventilation. And what I personally recommend is with your pillows, stick them at the front or store them elsewhere, so then you are good to go. Now, this bed will take 230 kg max, so it'll take plenty of weight for when you want to use it. Moving to the rear of the vehicle, you can see that you've got your slider door here. There's just a little latch on here that pulls off. That will, of course, allow you to pull the door across to divide the space. It's a really nice use of space. And in the floor here, it steps up, which is a really nice bit of storage. In here, great for shoes, that just lifts up. You can pop your shoes in there. In the back here, you've then got your shower to the right. Now, as I mentioned, you can obviously prime your system and allow that to flow through. Do that for all your taps, including your shower. And you have got a little bit of a like a duckboard in there that, of course, needs to be removed for the shower to be used. All right. On the other side, you've then got your toilet. As I mentioned, your cassette toilet uses something called a blade. The blade is what this is, this little piece of plastic. Push that away to you to open the blade, and push that towards you, or pull that towards you rather, to of course close the blade. So when the cassette is in use, all you need to do, push that blade away from you so all the waste can drop into the cassette. Once you've done that, click the blue button on here, which will activate your flush. You'll need your pump on for that to activate, just bear in mind. But click that and that will flush the entire system. Once you've done that, pull the blade back towards you to close it, and then you're good to go. You close the blade for two reasons. The main reason being is it stops any odours from escaping, but the second reason is it does get you into the habit of that being closed, so when you come to remove the cassette, you're not having that issue of it jamming. You'll also notice you've got a little indicator here. Now at the moment it is reading red to indicate the cassette is full. Don't worry, at the moment we've got some water in there as we are just purifying, cleaning the system, but that will read green to indicate that there's nothing in it and it's good to use. And in the back, of course, you've got your island bed. At the moment, it's in the recline position. You can pull the bed forward. There's a little handle underneath there, which will allow you to lay the bed flat. And of course, give you a little bit more space when you're lying down. You've got storage each side as well, along with some really deep pockets of storage either side of the bed as you step up into it as well. And your ladder for your drop down at the front is just located here. On each of your windows, you'll find that you've got a fly screen along with a blackout blind. And to open this up, all you need to do is simply turn the tabs like so, and then lift and open the window like that. You can put these windows on venting to allow a little bit of airflow through, but please ensure that when you're travelling, that is of course shut all the way to, one, stop any water from getting in, but two, you don't want any wind getting under and ripping off the window itself. Now that concludes the handover video on this Benimar. I hope you enjoyed.